Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Meeting Forge. I'm your host, Jim. Today, I have a special guest with me, John O'Connor. He runs Career Pro Incorporated and is often a featured author on the Forbes Coaching Council. He helps people find jobs and this time has been extremely helpful not only to me but to many other people. So, highly recommend him. Other than that, without any further ado, let's get into it. Hey, John, how's it going, man?
It's going good. Good to see you.
Great. So typically the format is we talk a little bit about your story and your life story, your narrative on what you think is important so far, how you've made some meaning in your life so far. We'll connect some of those things, and then we'll talk about each of those in some of the symbols that we have with the hammer, the sword, the pin, and the crown. And then we'll close. So without any further ado, what's your story, man?
Oh man, I hope it's still being written. You know, that's the whole thing. Is we're on a continuum here, and
Yep.
I think my story blends into a lot of other stories. And I try to keep myself in front as much as I can. You know, with your search and how you're looking for a job. We helped you. When companies lay off, we call that outplacement. We help them. When people are just had a person transitioning from the military, who we're working with. And, it's just integrating your personality, hopefully within the lives of others. I think leaders are supposed to do that. I have a unique leadership position in that, I kind of show up professionally right now, and then we can go back, if you want, back to the future. At these special times with you, it was you were really smart about pre-planning, and for others, it's, they meet in a little bit of a crisis. I'm been in this business long enough where, I have helped a number of my clients' kids who were not even born when the clients came to me through outplacement or through their own, just looking on the web or way back. And you can see these things like yellow pages in the Smithsonian. People would, page through and find us, and they would seek us out, or they'd get referred like it is today. And, we would help people through this difficult time period and of career change. It could be change in their life. It could be something that, like I had someone whose husband was, lost, and they've come to me for help to kind of navigate the adventure, of their new, what they have to do now to make money and to go on. And then I've got executives that are doing very well, but they want to, create something of value, not just because of money, but because they want to, impact others' lives. And we get to help them find entrepreneurial opportunities, or they get laid off and they're like, I've done good in corporate America. I want to find my own business. So, and military people have dreams and goals that, in the 20 years or so that it takes to retire from the military, if they go that far, or they go 3 years or 6 years. And there's a lot of dreams unfulfilled. And so I think we're in the business right now. I get to be in the business sometimes of helping people achieve those dreams, or having the job that helps pay for a kid's special needs education. So I don't know where that started. I wouldn't have predicted this career for myself. I'm sure I thought I was going to be at 9 and 10 years old, a professional baseball player living in the middle of, Northwest Ohio, and, later in life, maybe a coach, a wrestling coach, or a hockey coach or something. I don't know. I'm a coach, I'm a writer, and it's all a mixed combination, Jim. Who knows where we're going next?
Yeah, you have a lot there. So I guess before we address where we're going next, because we're gonna really touch into that, and with the pen, and when we kind of talk about legacy a little bit, what's the story behind Career Pro? Because I mean, you've built a really great company. So what was some of the motivation? What was the big why behind that? And kind of, I guess, the general story for motivating you to I guess the narrative for how you are where you are today.
Well, I think I come in from a unique perspective. Like, this is, excuse me, ancient history, but you go back 25, 30 years ago when I got started here, it was almost like leaping into a little mini franchise where my Career Pro, as it was called Career Pro Resumes. To make a long story short, I had a nice mentor involved who really helped me on a week-to-week basis. But what I was coming in with was I had an athletic background, I had academic background, English degree, Master's of Fine Arts in Creative Writing, Bowling Green State University, St. Lawrence University. But I mean, being a confident person, being at least in the Army Reserve, I did ROTC and you know about that. I guess I thought I knew enough to kind of run with a small business. I mean, how hard could it be? Plus I had a bit of a tutor and someone could kind of show me the ropes. Back then we were printing things out and mailing them. That's what you did to apply for a job. There was no internet to speak of. But I mean, it's almost like you had a craft and you learned how to weld, when welding was important, and welding's still important, but it's, I don't know how much it's changed, but, I learned how to write, edit, respond. I had hundreds of hours, I guess, of logged in one-on-one time, either over the phone or in person with people to get to know their story, their career stories. But here's what I didn't know. I didn't know how to run even a small business. I didn't know when, someone wrote a check and it was a bad check. Like, who would ever do that? I would never do that. Didn't these people take an oath of office to uphold the Constitution and defend it and never bounce checks? No, they didn't. So I had so many lessons to learn. I mean, and I kind of looked at this like, look, I'm coming in with some baseline. I know I've been a coach. I've been a writer. So it kind of came together for me. And after a couple of years of being tutored, the woman that owned the sort of the franchise of Career Pro Resumes, ancient days, it used to be, she controlled like 17 of these businesses. And she said, I want you to take this over and I want it to be yours. And you need to get the paperwork and file things with the city and state. You can figure that out. She had financial problems. She said, but here's what I want to help you get started and turn this over to you and not charge you a lot of money or do anything because you've been done so well in this business, is because you're the only one who didn't lie to me and paid me on time while I was going through some vulnerable time. And I know you did. I know you handled it right. You never missed a payment. I know that sometimes you didn't make money a certain week. You would still make sure you paid me. She goes, that's, your integrity means everything. And it didn't go unnoticed. So, I mean, I thought, wow, what a life lesson that I learned. I just probably out of fear, I would never not pay her. I mean, I owed her money. Oh my gosh, you got to pay people you owe money to and you have bills with. So anyway, that's a little bit how I got started in the business. We can go, backwards or forwards, but I think I learned a lot about people. I learned a lot about what they were going through, what mattered to them, which is not always what mattered to me. So I started doing assessment tests and figured out what motivates people. Didn't always motivate me. You know how we kind of look at the world is everyone's just like us or should be like us. Now, how do we get them to be more like us so we can get along with them? I mean, that's pretty warped, isn't it? But, partially that was learned in the military. I think to go and throw it back at you is that maybe the one lesson that I certainly you learn this in college too, and I think just going through life, but the military is just such a melting pot of so many different cultures, backgrounds, and I just started, I think that was probably one of the best places for integration. Today it's, even sexual orientation, people could be out of the military for that, but every background, every take, every bit, except for people probably with some physical special needs, although those people came back and were often, warmly received who were injured in the military. But you really had a lot of people that you had to learn to get along with. You learn their stories, how to motivate them. And I think if, my experience, not so much full-time military, but even the reserves, as a leader, you learn all that. So all that impacted me. And I think it's made me a more curious person. The journalist in me comes out, the coach in me comes out. And, I try to bring all that every day to Career Pro and what we're doing here. So back to you, Jimmy.
Back to you. Anyway, so one of the major things I hear often is, especially in our conversations and stuff like that, is especially with military people, is significant emotional events or significant stories from time in service. Do you is there a particular time that that are a really important lesson that you learned when you were in the Army Reserves?
I mean, there's so many that you can learn. I mean, I think the number one thing, of course, that you learn is that your tone. Of course, I've had to relearn this because I want to get things done. Probably need to wear a blood pressure cuff because I'm like, let's go. What is wrong? Let's just bring it down. So even the conflicts in the military and when you had disagreements, how do you do it diplomatically? But even in the reserves, and of course, many of the reserves and Guard have been deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan, and other places over the years that, they've served with you in the full-time military and so on. There's almost like so many walls that are down, but it's certainly, I think, safety of all things, that not only safety just in terms of the everyday, that was just drilled into my head. Like, I think with my kids, I have 4 kids. I mean, they just looked at me funny when I was like, hey, before we do anything today, someone got hurt the other day. I was like, safety briefing. And they would just roll their eyes. I mean, I would have so many safety briefings because there were a couple people that even in our work, again, not being deployed, I was never deployed, but people got injured. People nearly died. We did road construction. We did building construction. We did, did so many different things that you realize, gosh, one small error, one little thing could get someone hurt, injured, killed. And I just think that's such an unbelievable amount of responsibility you have as a military officer, whether you're, JAG or you're out in the front lines as a 11B or whatever. It's just that tremendous responsibility. At least, I know that it's not always life and death job search, and I remind people of that. But knowing that, hey, there's a part of someone's life, now we're even learning more about mental health, that is on the line every time you touch someone. So to the extent I've kept that in high in mind, and I've really not tried to treat people as numbers, but treat them as individuals and as characters, as interesting stories that they're telling. I think that's probably helped me remain in this business, curious, caring about people, and I hope that is the legacy of what we've developed here.
All right. And then the last question. So I'm expecting a kid coming up here in a few months. So
you're expecting, or your lovely wife?
Excuse me.
You are expecting, or your lovely wife?
My lovely wife is expecting, but together, because we're married, she owns everything, and you know how it works, right?
Well,
what's mine is hers, and what's hers is hers.
Well, the sheer amount of incredible biotech and life sciences businesses we have here in North Carolina. You could have run with that story. But congratulations, you two. It's your first, I know, right?
It is, and so from. I know you have kids and stuff like that. And so what's been one of the major foundational things so far with raising your kids and being a parent?
Oh my gosh. I don't know who wrote books on parenthood or marriage. The only people, I remember taking a couple of seminars with people in the marriage. We'll get to the kids in a second, but they're always done by people that were just married, like within a few years. And they're like at our church, there was one with older adults, and they were talking about all these things. And my wife and I were going through IVF and trying to have kids and miscarriages and things like that. And of course, it's hard not to be a little jaded when you're going through that stuff. But these people, they didn't have kids, or they had kids and they remarried, and they're just all happy. And they're talking about all this theory stuff. I about just wanted to blow up in church, but I was like, we're in church. I'm like, life's harder than that, but it's all in your it's all in your perspective. I mean, we've been a part of Miracle League and supported Miracle League in the Triangle. These are from, kids with special needs to adults with special needs. And I mean, these parents that have to take hours to get their kids even into a van, thank God they even have a van to take them to sit in a wheelchair and barely move. And you see a little smile on their face when they get this hit. In an inning, you're playing the little baseball thing in the Miracle League. But, we were faced early on with a choice, my wife's medical career or kind of taking care of our kids the way we needed to. And especially our son, Colin, who's now 22. And, I always joke that I derailed her medical career. I think she was going on really to be an MD, PhD, and could she have done it? Yes, but we've had to advocate for him. He's had seizures nearly his whole life. There's always something there with kids or kids like him, and now she serves a special needs community as a teacher and serves him. And I think that's been one of the tougher things in our life, is to just go through what we had to do to get pregnant, and then losing a kid at childbirth, of course. Yeah, I mean, just all these formative experiences. But I had met with, and I've known so many people, and don't worry, things are going to go just easy for you guys, just in terms of birth. But welcoming in a kid who was not like everybody else, having the absolute joy, his brothers and his sister, their whole lives of having Colin as a part of the fabric of our family. I may sound cliche. I cannot think of a life I would trade, even with all the stresses, all with the close calls, the ambulance runs that he's had with grand mal seizures. Like, it's just so worth it. And he's so worth it. That whatever inconveniences, I think I don't know that we've ever gone to Disney World just because of situations and whatever. Like, all the little things that we had to say no to, I don't think we looked at each other. Our kids, maybe they feel, cheated, but I just think that there's, that perspective has allowed me to coach people too. Like, when people come up and people have different challenges, I realize we've seen Colin's friends that have his same genetic condition perish at 10, 12, 13, 15, 20, 25 years old. It's completely sad. But just to have when I meet an executive who said, I've been laid off and, things are going bad. And again, there's a mental health part of job, loss and so on that's seriously severe. But when I'm able to coach people and go with a peace of mind, knowing Colin, what he's gone through and what other kids have gone through even tougher, I'm like, hey, there are many things worse than what you're going through. And guess what? You can replace money. You can't replace someone's life. You can't replace time. But I just think that's been given me a perspective. And I think people who know me know that that's really what motivates me on a daily basis, is to serve others and to do right by them and encourage them, because he's an encouragement to me. My wife's been an encouragement to me. And I think passing that along is like one of the secrets of why I think we're good at what we do, is just that simple, being a cheerleader, finding out the story, finding out the struggle people are going through, giving them a perspective that, things are going to be okay. And leading them through that journey is what what it's all about. And I know a lot of leaders, I know you're striving to do that where you are, and the impact we have in other people's lives. I know people doing nonprofit work and work with so-called handicapped people, special needs people. I mean, those are some of my biggest heroes. It's not your title. It's not your money. It's not anything. It's just like the military. We're all in the Army together. That was one of my first lessons in the Army. These people were fighting. It was like, hey, you're no better than me. I'm no better than you. We are all in this together. We are one Army. And I heard that drilled into my head. And it's like, hey, we are one body. We are Americans. And we are, our mission is to help other people, inspire others, and hopefully lead them to things that will be empowering to their family. I think that's what it's all about, Jim. It's not just about money, status, title, because I've seen people's lives fall apart with lots of money, with little money, and they're putting the pieces back together. We've been there for that little short period of time. I know it's important. And when I ever lose that perspective, even a little, in trying to talk to people or coach people, or I don't keep that presence of mind, I think I lose them a little bit. So it's a humbling experience. Our challenges are our challenges, but we've embraced them. There are things I think at times you think, wow, what if, would I have saved more money? Would I have had more in retirement if I didn't just spend money to try and see if we could, fix things in my kid's life or whatever. But you know what? It's all been worth it. And that part of the journey with my kids, my family, and, the stressors that we've had to even come through it, to be a family intact, to have them here, and to have your family just means everything to me. And that's kind of I think the heart of how we coach.
Yeah, that's great. And I think now it's like almost the perfect segue. You kind of start moving into the symbology of the hammer and talking about how we make and find meaning in the world. So without any further ado, let's transition to that. All right, so
he's got me fired up. I'm ready to re-up, my man.
Exactly.
Go.
So here's the thing, right? So I think we kind of laid out a bunch of materials in your life, right? And from writing, your creative writing background, some time in the military and in the ROTC type of framework, and trying to develop yourself as a leader and developing with mentors, not just for the guard or the reserve, but also like professionally. And a big part of that is as well is your family life, and like the value that is there that I really don't do justice in capturing. So like we have these materials, right? And we kind of alluded to it earlier that you can have all the money in the world, you can have all the title in the world, but at the end of the day, that's not really meaning. And it's not really a good thing to, forge a foundation for you moving forward. So in regards to the hammer and the hammer is bringing materials together, and also as you're making an object, right, or your sword that we'll allude to later, it's the empowerment is kind of pulled out of it. It's revealed to you. So I guess I'll just leave that open-ended and say, like, what do you think about that? And how have you kind of forged ahead in that regard?
Well, I think it's little things, it's little challenges. It's the clients over the years. I make sure I'm going where you want to go, but
yeah, you're good.
It's people that present challenges. Maybe there's a person who can't get out of their own way. How far can you go as a coach, and how soon might you need to have a tough conversation with, letting someone know you've done this in the military too. But in the civilian world, when they're not soldiers who come to you who are, there's a set of laws and standards you have. It's someone kind of coming to you under the guise of the company or individual. And it's like, how do you kind of quiet your mind and, say, look, I'm going to have to challenge this person. I mean, I've got to guide them away from this thought process, or, two people who will hopefully reveal some things to them that will help them. Because I feel like there have been many, many times when I thought, am I the only person who notices the things that these people need to change? And the coaches for me have been other clients. They've been influencers, teachers, people colleagues in my field who've often said to me, John, that's your job as a coach, man. That's why they hired you, or that's why the company hired you. Sometimes you have to have that tough conversation. I'm like, well, why not some of the other people in their life? And other times, I wasn't the right messenger. And I've had to surround people, hopefully, with influencers who had a good heart, who wanted to say, hey, here's a different perspective you might want to bring to the table. Here's why you have gotten in this pattern of, in a sense, professional failure. But hey, here's some good news. Here's how to mitigate that. Here's how to stop that. And so just handling all those different personalities. I mean, in today's world, I mean, you have quite a few people who are, probably would be diagnosed, if it was a diagnostic, not a doctor, I can't do this, narcissistic for sure. It's a society that's really propelled that. Sociopaths. I mean, you just run across, on the negative side, and you run across people too that, have been just a blessing to the business from early on. I had people say, hey, you got a problem with your computer, you need to leave. Like, what do we need to leave? It was like some IBM guy fixed my computer like in 4 hours. He goes, just bring me a donut and some coffee or something. Like, I've had blessings like that. I've had clients, who just noticed I was under a great amount of stress or something with one of my kids. Of course, it was obvious more than one time, when one of my clients said to me, hey, it's pretty cool that you're setting a new style here, because you've taught me a lot about kind of how to bring some new techniques to the interview process. Said, John, is wearing two different shoes like kind of a unique thing that you're doing now? I was like, well, I had no sleep. I had twins. One of them was in the hospital for a while. Like, I looked down, I'm like, God, my wife didn't dress me this morning. And yeah, he had a sense of humor. He said, man, you should go home and take a nap, come back later. I got you. I'm going to take care of, I'll sit here and answer phones with you and your little staff here. What kind of great people are that? Sense of humor, people to encourage you. Sometimes it comes from people that you're supposed to serve. You get those lessons. And sometimes they present a challenge. Other times they're put in your life, I think, to just be like an encouragement to you. And then, I'm inspired by your story, Jim. Just the way you took hold of the coaching, the way you kind of just owned it and said, some of this is your responsibility, but a lot of it's mine. Let me go, make this stuff happen. So you look for bright students. I call my great clients my best students because I used to teach. And they, when you see someone taking your advice like a great teacher, you see someone, applying it and getting results, even if it's taken a bit of a struggle to get there, but they're thriving, they're better off, they're going to be in a position to give like you are now. That's what you want to inspire. So I feel like that's a bit of our legacy, whether you're in the career business like I am, whether you're in a leadership role like we always talk about on our podcasts and our weekly Zooms. I think that's what it's all about. And, that just doesn't get old to serve people. And I found that I could do it in bigger groups. I could do it by, en masse. I could write more books maybe or publish more articles. But boy, it really comes down to that getting through to that one person and trying to have a breakthrough with them, and how many lives will be affected because you were there trying to make a difference at maybe a little bit of a difficult time in their life. I think we've all got that opportunity somewhere. How we apply it, I just admire a lot of my clients who have gone on and continue to produce and haven't been jaded, just said, hey, it's all about me. I'm retiring with my money. I don't need to do anything else. They're volunteering. They're on boards. They're influencing people for the best. I hope that I had a little something to do with all of those. And
Okay.
But I've been forged through those challenges, and their challenges have become mine. I've had to learn not to take on the stress of those challenges. But, when it's someone who's going through a fight with you, whether it's your kid or whether it's someone, there's a part of you that's like, man, I just want to be in the trenches with you. And I think I brought at least that attitude. Maybe it's got me too upset when my clients are hurting, but that's just how I'm built a little bit. And I think to the extent that's been a good thing, I really think it has, because people know, hey, we got your back regardless of your financial situation. We've got your back, no matter what. And I hope at least that attitude has inspired people to know, to give them some hope.
Yeah. So I'm getting a small echo here. It's on me. Anyway. All right. So that should have solved that. So one thing I love about like these symbols and stuff, like, is like we can easily go from one to another very quickly. And like you touched like all three and all four of them like that. And so that's really awesome.
I don't mind driving deeper on, on one of those, but I think it's just, when you have to, it's just so tough. I love that symbol that you have. That's such a great break, but life's going to do that to you. I've had people sailing along pretty, scot-free, and then something happens to them. They get hit with a health challenge. Something happens to their kid. Those things just humble you. And it's like, oh my gosh, what a short time we have in this life that we're going to have to impact people. They're really, someone said to me on another show that I did recently, it's like, he kept saying, it's just like, I want to work with people who kind of get it, because I just don't want to have to fight with people through the process. Well, I found sometimes you have to, some of those things forge you, where you have conflict. I don't love it. I know some people thrive on it, and I don't really love it, but I like knowing that, sometimes you can grow at any age, at any status, at any title, with any amount of money. And I think those of us who realize, boy, I'm just getting started. That's my attitude. I can learn from you. I can learn from other sources. I've never stopped learning. that's just very healthy, because I feel like I'm learning stuff now that is really coming home. I'm like, why didn't I know this 10 years ago or 20 or whatever? But I'm still curious, and I think we got to stay that way.
I got a question for you, John. So here we are, like in your life, and you're in the forge, right? And you've been taking on people's challenges as some of, I think it's interesting, as some of your own material, right? To kind of like make yourself better, and also there's some of those great things. What have been mistakes, I guess, bad materials that you've put into into yourself? Like what were some of those things you were like, I probably shouldn't have put that in there?
Do we need to even go there? I mean, I think the world is, look, to the extent we can, it's like I even do meditation more now than ever. Like, I mean, I thought I was. Like, my meditation was, just going for a workout. And in a way it is. But I mean, really quieting your mind, that is hard for me to do. Like, things are going. And, I've learned to kind of start to do that. I think it's just usually like, you should have done that years ago. Well, I'm doing it more now. And because you have, I think, how you're built, you have kind of a fix-it mentality, like everything, I've got to be involved. I got to fix everything. It's got to be me. It's got to be, and you realize how much of what you did was you, or how much of it just you were disciplined, you were there at the right time, you had a good heart, and what's going to happen is going to happen. There's not a lot of that in me, but it's grown. And I don't know if I've answered your question. Ask it again, because I had an idea. you're like fired up. You're up here. I want to get kind of the setup. So ask it again, and that'll give me a little pause and a break.
Yeah. Sorry. Wait, what just happened? Okay. So what have been some of the bad materials that you've put into it?
Well, I think there you go.
Flawed assumptions, some bad habit or something like that. Well, wait, what was some bad materials?
Oh, I think it comes in so easily through the media, through, we're in this always on kind of world. I mean, just putting this thing off and not using it and quieting our mind. That's where I was getting at before. It's like the assault that people and even the mediums that we're on now, like, it needs your full attention all the time. To me, this is creative. This is good. I hope someone gets something out of our conversation. I know they will, and I love what you're doing. But it's like an all-out assault for your attention. And I think today, more than ever, you've got to walk away and say, you know what, I'm going to spend time associating with people who can uplift me. And you have to make a completely conscious decision, or you're going to be drawn into the negativity of the world. Like, I've had clients, I'm like, I've had to talk to them. I'm like, are you sleeping? Oh, well, not good. I think I can tell, because you're one idea to the other, to the other. I lost my job. My wife's kind of this, or my husband. Like, people have a lot of stress. I was like, there's got to be a place. Like, it's not like a part of my typical thing. I'm like, are you even exercising at all? Well, I haven't had time for that. I'm looking for a job, and they're all white and pasty, and I go, why don't you are allowed. I'm giving you permission to take a walk. I'm giving you permission to turn off. And what I learned from some of my higher performers, Jim, is that in military people too, like, you can only train so many hours a day, like, really train. Like, you need breaks, you need to read, you need to reflect. Even in the military, how many hours a week did you guys hard train when you were getting ready to go be deployed?
It varied, but probably around, like, it varied on what was going on.
But
no more than
my
60
athletes
hours.
And top performers, it was never more than like 15 to 20 hours a week. Like, I mean, training, like, because you needed your mind to pick up on concepts and to learn things and so on. And so with my clients, that's one of my little things. I'm like, hey, you don't need to job search 20 hours a week. You could do something that quiets your mind. I said, when's the last time you went to a matinee movie in the middle of the day? I'm like, oh, I wouldn't do that. I mean, that's work time. I mean, that's job search. I'm like, some people, I'm like, if you can afford it, go to the beach this weekend. What? Like, just leave. Just get your brain away from this stuff. Like, I love giving people advice like that. Or, quiet your mind. Take it, go to the library in the middle of the day and don't research anything on, go to a movie and just enjoy it with a friend, a spouse, or whatever. Like, I'm going to feel like I'm cheating on my boss, which is me now because I got to get a job. Go do that. So I think just, it's almost like we're having to find reasons to kind of quiet people down. There's more than enough information. We're going to get through this thing. But if you go and you're indicating stress and intensity, and you, God, I was so fired up about this potential job offer, I kind of blew the interview. No, man, chill it out. You're going to be all right. And people are going to pick up on that mode. And I think if anything, my son Colin, going back to him, he was getting frustrated at the supermarket because I was getting frustrated. He may not be able to speak and with typical sentences and do some of the things with autism, with some of his diagnosis. But let me tell you something. He can read a person's emotion and heart like I've never seen anyone do it. Of course, I'm close to him. But he read that on me. But guess what? My tension was up. So what did his do? I'm like, he's such a barometer. But I think our clients and the people we associate and your soldiers and others, they read that too. And if you have that kind of like, hey, we are going to win, we are going to get through this, everything's going to be okay, and I've got your back, man, that's some of the best leaders you've ever been around. They may not have had every single bit of book knowledge. They may have been a little lenient on a couple of rules, but they're like, man, that guy has my back. That woman has my back. That person really, they know what I'm about. I mean, that just impresses the heck out of me, especially with people who have sort of made it and they're successful. He'll still have that heart in corporate America, in their own business, who go, you know what, I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to take care of my people, even if I suffer. And look at the CEOs and look at the leaders who've come out of the pandemic being kind of real champions. They're the ones who said, you know what, I opened up my mattress store. This just happened this week. And I let people sleep in there. I brought them food. I didn't even think PR. Some of these businesses post-disaster have thrived. And others, you know, it's just something funny. You do the right thing and, you kind of get lucky at some point. But I love leaders like that. I love, individuals. Hopefully we can keep encouraging that in people. But you've got to get away, because the biggest challenges and the mistakes I've made have let that negative stuff come in me and then believe what I think is sometimes a lie about individuals, that they can't do something. And if I've ever been discouraging to anyone, sometimes I got a coach and it's a tough line. Like, I want to say, don't look at those jobs, look at these. But I will err on the cup as half full encouragement side. But I think where I've probably maybe not figured stuff out is maybe when you look back, you're like, boy, this person had the signs of, you should have just said, hey, you need to move on. You can't fix them. You can't help them. I think I probably spent too much time trying to help people that you were just like, you know what? It's not the right time. I don't need that kind of help now. And sometimes that'll deter you from the people who really want and need and appreciate your help. So don't get bogged down in the negative people, or the people sometimes, they're going through a time you can't quite get to them then. You kind of got to move on, and that's all right too. That's been a hard transition for me, to just let someone go in a way, at least mentally, that I thought, wow, I could have made a bigger impact on their lives. That's a tough one, because I think with all the negative and all the chatter that's coming in, you sometimes you don't have a crystal to kind of read people. And I will be forever interested in how you do that better, how you help people better, how you read them better, how you better lead them. I don't know, but I'm telling you what, I've learned a lot from you. I've learned a lot from other people that have come through and said, hey, did you ever think about this perspective? Or here's my perspective from the military, or here's my, when I had that challenge. I mean, so many of my clients have taught me that I feel like I have the obligation to teach others.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think that like now we're treading right into the sword. And before we transition over into that, like I think that was really great. And like how we talked about, the attention factor, like everything has your attention. You actually have to parse that out. You have to sit there and say, no, this isn't important. This is more important. And so we're going to transition into the sword now. So it was really interesting that you started talking about judgments and like the sword at some level, it is a judgment tool. Like you are making a judgment with it. Um, I prefer, if I could, with the right programming and the right animations, my symbol would have a sheath sword, because I don't want it to to be used the wrong way, right? So it's kind of like that thing of last resort. But at the end of the day, we still have to make those judgments, and it's also a symbol of empowerment and confidence. So you've forged yourself through a bunch of these experiences, and you've made yourself into, and we'll call it a sword for right now. And what has been the most, I guess, if you could put it like up here, like what's been the most empowering moment you've had in your life so far?
Well, I mean, just I don't know if I could say that there's one. I mean, I think the realization that the kind of the real peacefulness that comes over you to say, I'm not in control of this thing. Whatever you believe God is, I don't, I can only order so many things, like
Mm-hmm.
I can only impact so many things, and that's okay. And I can't change an election. I can't even convince someone to maybe change their vote, or,
Mm-hmm.
I can't stop the pain by myself. Or, how you'll be when you see your child is born. It's like, you'll do anything for that kid. I remember my daughter had a couple little, mental health challenges, I guess you would say, just, being, I don't know what girl that 15-year-old doesn't have them, or boy, or, there's just so many challenges on those kids. And I think she's at one point, out of clarity, and you got years for this, teenager, don't worry about that right now. She just said, we said to her, we gladly give up our lives for you. Like, I think my wife said that, or I said that. It was just like a no. Of course you would. To me, it was just like, yeah, if it meant you, she was just doing one of those theoretical things. Well, what, if this happened to so-and-so and she looked up at us, she was like, you would lose your life just so I could live? Like, we looked at her like, of course. Like, that could be, like, where did you get that question?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just think that that's just automatic. Like, if you saw your kid going through stuff, and I think I don't know. I hope she wasn't too surprised, but it was just like, look, if everything, went away, I was like, we would gladly give up our life for yours. Like, you're our child. I mean, it was just the easiest thing, but to kind of see a little bit of an astonishment, like, your life, I mean, that's a lot. Like, I mean, it's just, what's a life worth? It's kind of the impact you make on others. And, you're not bringing anything with you when you go. I just have this realization. There are times of clairvoyance and clarity where I'm like, that peacefulness, you're like, you know what? I think I'm in a good place. I think I've done the right thing. I think I've followed through in the right way. And I think if you can kind of keep that in some ways going, because life, I think, throws you many challenges. And if it hasn't yet, for some people who's listening, it will. But, it's like, and who do you have around you can reach out to, who will be like, hey, I got something personal I need to share. Appreciate you being there for me professionally. I mean, really, it's been me and my close association with my clients that have done so much. It's, other people have friendships outside of work, but mine have been kind of built here. And that peace of mind, or those little moments that you should cherish, even taking time away and you're listening to a tune or something, you're like, maybe it brings you back to high school, maybe it brings you back to another time, and go, am I in a good place? Because I've talked to many, many people who are at their corporate jobs or in the military out, and said, are you in a good place now? I just don't feel like I am, and I have to change something. And sometimes I get to tell them, it's your job. Why don't we find a better, and not just a title and money, but a better environment for you? And I know, I know that that's I think that's what I would share. If you want to drive down to a couple specific examples, I got them.
No, you're good, man. You're good. So like, I got that echo again. Oh, well,
sounds good on my part, man.
Yeah, it's on me. Anyway, it comes and goes.
That's what do they? So what if we auto tune a little bit? The voice will be better.
Yeah, it'd be exactly. Just get my auto tune on. Anyway, no one sings anyway nowadays. Everything's auto tune. JK, LOL. Not really. But so you find this sense of empowerment through like this, like understanding that not everything is in your locus of control, and really kind of breaking apart what is and what isn't. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, it's just I think we constantly have to remind ourselves. You can control your attitude, and your actions, but other people, circumstances. You ask why 1,000 times, and you're not always going to get an answer.
Oh yeah, that's agreed.
I mean, I forget what Shakespeare it is. He's asking, is it Othello? It's on, on the deathbed, and he says, "What you already know is what you know." I mean, you're not going to get an answer. No. But that's that quietness that I think just about every single person that I meet, we need that. If you don't already have that in your life, like take time, go away, silence your mind. You're an avid reader. Read, dig in, and don't just wait for your colonel, if you're in the military, or your boss to provide that runway. You have to have that entrepreneurial attitude about your brain, and keep it strong, because the little snares are enticing. They're out there all the time. They're waiting for us, the snares of our mind, and it's to our best benefit to encourage others to get back to that classic, time away, read, relax. And then when it's time to take action, bring on experts. I think I'm an expert, although I don't like calling myself that, in a certain niche area, and bring those people on that can help you with a jump start in that area. But then trust those instincts and trust yourself, and really put yourself in a peaceful state of mind as you conquer and forge the sword and all this stuff that you got me all motivated about. I think I'll go for a walk after this. I might not go out and joust or something, but I'm definitely going to do something physically active. I'm going to do some push-ups tonight, Jim.
You better just start cranking them out, Like, yeah, that's such an Army thing to do. Anyway, or actually just a military thing to do. So we'll kind of transition to the pen. I think that's going to be a really interesting topic, because you're a writer, and I think this is going to be good. So I fixed my transition so that way they come back to back instead of me having to click and there's like a break. So if you see when you see one that's premiering on Wednesday with Oz and from Tart, and then you'll see the Lou Everett group the following week, you'll see where I have to click in between. I don't have to worry about that no more. But anyway, so we've talked about, kind of making and revealing some aspects of yourself. And we've talked about how you've kind of made some meaning in your life. And then from there, we've talked about how you've been empowered and how you are being empowered. And you even alluded to a little bit of making judgment calls when you're talking about the sword. And sometimes it's not an easy thing to do. But now we're talking about the pen, and how, I guess in some ways it's a way of legacy. It's also a way to inspire future people, like generations. It's almost like your mark on the world in some regards. Like I always equivocate the pen with like Homer's, like Achilles, for example.
Way to go. Yeah, I love it.
Because Achilles wanted to be remembered forever. But if he didn't do those deeds, if he didn't do what he didn't do, if he did not do, and let's pretend he was real, right? Then he wouldn't have, like, he wouldn't be in the Iliad, and it wouldn't be still read today, and which is thousands and thousands of years later. So it's almost like a sense of he literally is immortal. So what are some of the things you're working on as far as like legacy and what do you want to impart in the future?
Well, I mean, I hope by the people that we've helped, that's a part of our legacy. I've never tried to build it, build that bigger than, what it was, that just that one-to-one. It's so hard for me to see. And I'm not, I don't see myself speaking to stadiums and things like that. Although I've been around people who have, and I've known them, I've got to know them. And, I love the fact that they're out in front of folks, and I've seen it's really incredible. You have just a different mission. But if you want to just talk about writing for a second, I think a lot of my clients, I brought in this publisher perish mentality from the academia world years ago into this, and I started seeping it into my clients' coaching. I know I was one of the first, certainly in the US, probably worldwide, that was really, I pushed my clients to start not just journalizing, although that's been around for a while and I believe in that, but just, hey, why don't you start creating your own content? Not because it was a good marketing idea, just because that's what I did. And I worked out a lot of, I think, issues in my mind. It ordered my mind. It allowed me to, get a sense of satisfaction that was, something I scribed and did and was able to do, whether it was creative fiction, which I'm getting back to, and whether it's, articles that I'm doing for Forbes, or LinkedIn, or I'm helping, hundreds of people write their own articles, and you've done some wonderful stuff there. But it's just, how hard it is just to come up with something that someone might call original. And it's just hard to do it, pretty good. I mean, there's a lot of people that first draft, hit the send button, it's out on LinkedIn or wherever, and they're like, I'm a writer. Well, good for you. It's almost like you had a workout, but there's no purpose to it. You're lifting weights and clanking them, and I'd like people to come together and put something together that you would call like a high quality piece, something that they would be proud of. And that takes craft, that takes work. Very few people. I always thought that Stephen King was like a one draft guy. He is just so prolific. He's quite a good writer, actually, but I think his works are probably like twice as long as they need to be. If he had a good editor to cut out a lot of the flack, he's even better because he's a storyteller. And so if you can tell your story in a short period of time, and you can start complementing the work that you do with, something written, whether it's for the company or whether it's external sources, or whether you're just penning a note to someone and you're able to say it, there is power in that sword. And I've realized that. And of course, it's morphed into these other mediums like podcasting that you're doing. You're authoring something here. And it's very Jin. I can tell. I love it. And you're doing some of those other things. That's a derivative of the written word. But it's almost like, to me, the written word is like the piano is to most music. It's like the foundation. Like Paul McCartney worked out a lot of the Beatles songs and other songs on the piano. Chick Corea, who just died, I'm sure worked out everything on the piano first. Then it went to other. Herbie Hancock. I mean, I don't know about Miles Davis. He probably did it on the trumpet, but it's a foundational piece. And I think you ought to be writing. You've got something to say. It might not be in a book. It might not be an article for Forbes. It might not be in something else, but take yourself seriously enough to at least journalize. And I think that's for everyone. And then if it becomes, a place where you can give a talk, you can order your words in that way, you can start publishing, you can contribute to a publication. Man, that's going to give you a lot of satisfaction. One of my clients didn't even know it before he came in here. He said, well, I always wanted to, write a children's book. I was like, why don't you do it? And I think that was one of the things we helped him do, is find someone who would help edit and build a children's book. And no one other than maybe his spouse ever said, oh, I believe you could do that. Well, why can't he do that? So those are, I mean, I really see that as a powerful instrument, something that I think we don't have to get an award for it, but I think it's always been in the back of my mind. I hope a client will stick with us long enough or do a program where we can introduce this idea to them, because look at the value it brings. Look at something, it's something you, like you said early, it's an artifact. It's something you kind of can pass on, and people could read it later. Like I read my dad's stories, especially as short stories or whatever. I mean, I was fortunate, but it's kind of like I knew how he created them. I knew it was in his mind. I could see it come to life. I could relate to the people he wrote about, so I feel like it's part of our legacy, but I think, why don't more people do that? It's a real gift that you can give other people, and don't, it doesn't have to just be, a critique or negative comments on the internet. Like how many great, interesting, thoughtful, humorous, or sarcastic people who, if they just said, I'm not going to waste my time by commenting on crap on the internet and wasting my time on social media, but I'm going to put those interesting thoughts and feelings and observations and responses into kind of a journal, and then maybe later on I'll make something of it. You know how many good, interesting published articles we'd have, and how many comments we could leave off of the online world? The world would be a better place, Jim. Maybe that's my new mission.
So I really liked how you kind of talked about journaling and stuff like that, because like I agree with you. Like journaling is a way to really focusing your mind and focusing your story, and over the long term, you literally make a narrative, and you can see the underlying currents of what's been important in your life. Just on a side note, Matthew McConaughey recently wrote Green Lights, that book, and that is all based off of his journals. Now, you don't need, and I agree with you, you don't need to be famous like him to write a book like that. And most importantly, the reason why it's probably reasonably popular is because it's genuine. It's genuine things that are going into this personal space. And yes, everybody's cautious about that, but this is very focused, very therapeutic. And in a way can kind of map your life out and share it with everyone else around you.
Well, the world has become a lot flatter, even before and after.
Flat earther there, John?
Read the book. But it's brought people who you thought, whoa, they're out there, famous people down to earth. And so even there's some great memoirs that are written. You could kind of use that style, but I think it sometimes would ease people's minds if they were like, hey, I don't know where I'm going to put these, but I'm kind of just my observations. I had one woman journalize all the silly things, sexist things and misogyny, like all those things. She kind of it jaded her away and to go through her professional life. She had owned her own business. She'd gone through a divorce. She's gone through it. Like she goes, I go, why are you always like seem to kind of bring yourself in a positive way to every situation? I just admire you because I know personally a little bit of what you've gone through, and I know professionally the challenges. She was quite successful to the outsider. If you were 10 feet away, in a way, from her perspective, from her life and career, you'd like, oh, she's perfect. But I knew not. I knew no one's perfect. And she was like, I've been journalizing. I've got so many good stories. I laugh at some of the things that have happened and I've written down that I didn't really have to take action on. I didn't allow them to really take over my life for months and stress me out and bring high blood pressure, whatever. She's in healthcare. And I was like, that's so brilliant. But she had some quite funny stories, but it kind of was left in her journal. I don't think she's ever published it. And maybe some people hope she won't, but it's just like it was there. She was able to put it away and kind of bring her best self to most situations. I really admire that. I don't know if that's what you could do in journalizing. I'm not a like certified journal expert, I guess you would say. I know there's a certification for everything, but gosh, just taking yourself seriously enough, being observant of those around you. I think it just makes us better as people to kind of have our words written down. And I've even noticed, if you've noticed top leaders, you think people that really, man, that guy's an expert, that person, that woman, this person knows what they're doing. I've had a lot of them be at meetings, that I've hosted. We host a lot of meetings with area leaders, and be like, you see them writing notes. Like, why does that guy need to write notes? I mean, he's got like $1 million in the bank and does this and has this title. It's like, he come back later, this person, and I've seen every gender, almost every age, have this habit say, I wrote that down. You said something very interesting there. I was like, gosh, they're pretty good listeners. So it always surprises me, these people who seem like they've made it, who are still in that, I learned something there. Tell me more about that. I'm curious about that. I just wrote that down. So it's a powerful habit. And I think if you're more attuned with your own voice, the better you're going to be for other people.
Yeah, I like that. As like I didn't think of it that way too, because like if you're excellent at taking your, I guess, the notes down of your own life in some regards, right? You can kind of see some of those other things that are, well, that stick out, that reveal themselves out of all of the whole text. So that's really interesting. I like that. So we'll go ahead and transition into the last symbol, which is the crown, which is always good. So the crown is either the storage device or the binding agent for all three symbols. Okay. In some regards, it represents leadership. In some regards, it can represent achievement. So I'll open it up first as leadership and taking on the responsibility of being a leader, and kind of get your take on some of that there, John.
Well, pose that in a question, Alex.
Yeah. So
I'm better at answering a question.
You are much better than answering a question.
I'm spinning with all these things we're talking about. You got me going. Good job.
See, I told you. Oh, no, so far we've talked about you forging yourself, you becoming like you making yourself into really I would say a pretty high powered coach and a high powered writer in many regards, and a family man. Like, can't forget that. And then we've talked about sharing your experience and stuff like that. I guess how do you see all three of those coming together and being bound by leadership?
Well, I think we hit them all already, because if but they do seem like puzzle pieces. So maybe bring it together. It's like I do have an energy around just trying to figure out how, just asking that question. You posed it. How do we bring these things together, not to get to a place where we're far removed from people? I heard, one pastor, I think he was just, going off on a lesson, but he was like, I was at home, I was watching a football game, I was hanging out, I was this. It was like, he goes, I don't think he meant it, but you know how if you're on stage in front of like 1,000 people, people kind of listen to what you say if you have a microphone. And he was like, isn't that the goal? Like, I don't think he meant it as the lesson. And then my son, one of my sons, Jack, we were walking out later, he goes, he just said to himself, he was like, is that the goal? Like, comfort. Oh, finally, all this stress can be over. And I was like, I was like getting where he was going. He painted the picture or whatever it was. And I was like, just being retired, like retired in the sense that, I'm not really engaged with a lot of things anymore. I don't need to volunteer. I don't need to still serve. I don't need to still, get out there. Maybe you don't need to go fight the good fight of everyday battle. I was like, he goes, that's just not the goal. I don't want that to be the goal. I don't want comfort, convenience, ease. I was like, well, you sure don't have it exactly in this family. But he goes, well, in a sense I do. I always feel like you've been there for me. I know people that are broken, that don't have fathers and don't have mothers and don't have this. And he was like, he has a heart to serve. I don't know exactly what he's going to do. He's 22. He's graduating this year. And he's certainly done a lot of things to work with, kids that are refugees. And he's working for the K-Yao cancer situation now, which they do a fantastic job. So he's going to do some service. I don't know what he's going to do. I mean, you would think, but it's like, no, there is something more than just get it back to just, park and let's just take it easy and calm our minds the rest of our lives. Yes, you do need to take these breaks, but gosh, stay with it. There's someone you can serve, some fight you can fight that's, not going to take it all out of you. And your wisdom, I think we're losing this in this culture, is anyone over, really sometimes over 50 years old is kind of deemed, you're not with it. I don't know, like whatever age it is, don't completely pull back from what your mission is supposed to be. And I'm thinking that I'm just trying to make sure that I'm taking care of my family, but I'm still in my mission field. And, I feel like I'm right in it with the rest of my clients. Like, what is your mission? Find your work-life mission and thrive. I don't want you to find your work-life mission and go be a martyr, in a different country or something, which I'm sure that's the vision of some missionaries. But it's like, try to thrive within your mission, but be in your mission. Because I've people seen out of their mission, their hair's fallen out. I've met them, their skin, their weight, their stress, and you get them a little closer to where they're supposed to be, around the people they're supposed to be around, not just title, not just money. It seems like they're like, I'm in a better place. I don't understand. My hair's growing back. Things are like, it's brighter outside these days. I'm like, it's no brighter than it ever was.
No.
You find that the circumstances are important. You want to change those when you need to change them, but getting you right, and that will just be an endless quest. You got the sword, you got the helmet, you got all this stuff, the fruit of the Spirit. I mean, I'm always trying to be a little bit better and to improve. And I just feel like, oh my gosh, I'm 50 something. I'm not close to where I want to be. I thought I'd kind of had arrived at this, and I would start really trying to gear it down. And in certain areas, I want to do that, but in other areas, I'm like, no, maybe the gearing down in certain areas will make me better to focus on others. And I hope I stick with that. I hope you don't see me like, you call me up, you want to do a podcast? I'm like, no, I'm on the couch, I'm watching TV. I'm done with this whole world, all these people's problems.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because like you're kind of alluding to like this idea of making sure, and correct me if I'm wrong here, like you're making sure that you're putting yourself in the right positions to be successful, and that kind of requires moving outside of your comfort zone. I guess would it be wrong to say like you have to kind of like have some discipline in yourself, right? And instead of just kind of like just relaxing too much, I can grow my beard out because I'm in the I'm done with the army. This is my rebellion phase. Okay,
yeah,
I have to shave it off eventually anyway. But like eventually, like I need to come back to being to in some regards a sense of balance between being both myself in this new life and moving and leading others through example and self-discipline. Is that like spot on?
I think so. I mean, you're going to find out, nothing changed you probably more than your own kid, but
oh yeah.
There's plenty of people that either don't have kids or lost a child or this, that, I just admire people that have gone on without some of the things that we should be just every day very solemnly thankful for. So, and one of my friends who's an executive coach, he was like, I don't coach anyone who doesn't do this. Answer this question and take some time in the beginning of the meeting. I was like, what if you're in a hurry? He goes, I don't miss this. He goes, what are you thankful for? I was like, he's Army guy too. And I was like, wow, I'd like to do that. But I think in some senses, you need to bring that peace of mind or peace, PEACE, to almost every situation. Like take a moment at the birth of your child, in the flurry, to just go, this is just a fantastic, no movie, no nothing will outdo this. And it's just being thankful, I think, and really kind of getting that spirit of thankfulness in almost every situation, which is hard for me to do. Like, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be thankful here because this is stressing me out. Your son having a seizure. I didn't have a lot of time to be thankful right in the middle of that, but I'm like, he's not dying. His body's doing something. He will come through this. We've been through this 100 plus times before, or you're with someone, you say, hey, you know, you've been on that path. You're like, hey, I know you're stressing out. You lost that job. You didn't get this. I know you're counting on it. I know your spouse isn't happy. I know this too shall pass. Maybe that wasn't what you were supposed to be doing. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't have the direct pipeline some people have with God or your higher being or what do you believe in. And where's that easy button that Staples put together? I mean, I used to have that on my desk. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
That little commercial? I was like,
Yep,
I would sometimes, a client would just present me this just impossible situation. I was like, you know what I turned to? They were like, what, the Bible or this? I was like, where's my I wish I could just make this go away and get this out of there. But, you know, I think in those moments too, you realize, hey, just like you've been there through the minefield in front of people, it's like, hey, this is the path. You're going to be okay. It's going to be all right. Even if you have a failure in this next thing, guess what? We got your back. You have to do this again in 2 years, it'll be easier and you'll be better and you'll find something better. Man, that's kind of fun to bring that kind of good news to situations. And sometimes it gets dark for a while in people's lives, but just make sure you don't remain there mentally or physically, and do not let the circumstance of the world as much as possible bring you down, because I kind of believe, if you let it, it will.
Yeah, it absolutely will. So that was pretty much all of the meaning forwards right there. And
I promised to go early, and we're getting close to time. So I want to finish early as promised.
Well, yeah, we are finishing early as promised.
Push-ups.
You need push-ups, yeah, exactly. But see, you got fired up. It's on you. So now we've gone through a lot of major things with in your perspective with the meaning forge and making meaning in life and empowering yourself, empowering others, writing especially, and the importance of those things, and then in leading yourself. And I think your story really does permeate, like our conversations really permeated all those facets in different ways, and which was really, really revealing in a lot of great ways. I liked how you've kind of dialed in on some of the, and this is not what I aim for all the time, but like you need to know what's in your locus of control, essentially, and just be at peace with that. Like, this is what I can control, and this is what I can't control. And I really appreciate that, because like you can't do everything. You just can't. So I'm going to give you the floor for your minute. Like, this goes to somebody. So eventually I'll be pulling out these clips for everybody. And this is like going to someone who really wants to hear what John has to say, because it's relevant to him. All right. So without any further ado, I will give you the solo layout.
Pressure's all right. Sounds good. Hey, listen, I think if you're in a situation where you feel discouraged at work, you feel discouraged professionally, I think there's always an answer for that. It may take time. It may take some work. It may take some effort. You may have to change some things and thoughts and habits and attitudes and so on. But you can always change something professionally when it has to do with money. The harder changes occur with, having to completely remove yourself from negative circumstances, and personally, or going through the life situations that people go with. And, sometimes most people need a job and need money and need career, need these things through those times. But we're here. Want to be here to tell you, whether you work with us or not, there is light. There is not just a tunnel to get to that light. There are many different ways, and you just need trusted advisors around you, people that, yes, sometimes will tell you got to stiffen up, you got to be strong, but other times, sometimes people just put their arm around you and say, hey, we're going to be with you through this. And we're one of those people. We represent that, but there are many other people that you don't even know whether you're 18 or 85, that are there for you, who want to help you through whatever you're going through, personally or professionally, like we do.
Thank you, John, so much for coming on the Meeting Forge. I hope to have you on again. It's been an honor, and well, I think it's just time now to leave the forge for a while.